Thanks, Eric. If we haven't met before, I'm Micheal Hunt. I currently serve IMATA as the chairperson of the Public Relations and Promotion Committee. We'll be talking a little bit about some of the messaging that IMATA is crafting and how in the next 12 months we're going to be telling our story and not letting the only ones doing the talking be the detractors to the good work that you and the places that you work do every day. I've also served IMATA as president, and I currently oversee the animal training operations for dolphins at the Georgia Aquarium and the Marineland Dolphin Adventure in Florida. Immediately prior to that, I was working with the SeaWorld parks in Orlando, was working as a supervisor in the animal training department. And as we move more into some of the perspectives of some of the topics tonight, hopefully that'll be able to add a interesting perspective to some of the discussion. You just want to move down the mark? He's got one already.
And Eric, did you want us to introduce the topics now, as well as ourselves? Or we'll come back to the topics.
Yeah, if you could introduce, I know that Mark, you have a topic on dry fisheries, so go ahead and introduce yourself and introduce the topic. And I know that Kelly and Ken are going to do the same.
Terrific. Well, so I'm Mark Xitco. Again, for those of you that haven't met, and it's so great to see so many folks here tonight. I don't know if it's because the rainstorm chased everybody off away from the pool. I work for the U.S. Navy Marine Mammal Program. Got my start actually at the Santa Barbara Marine Mammals Training Center. Worked there and at SeaWorld in San Diego while I was going to school. And had the good fortune to go to Koala Basin Marine Mammal Lab and got my degree, master's doing cognition work there with Lou Herman and his team. Worked at Epcot Living Seas for years doing cognition research, and I've been fortunate to be with the Navy now since 1996. I've been involved with IMATA since my first conference on Bourbon Street in 1988. Became a life member on the spot. Did about 10 years as the chairman of your Legislation, Information, and Policy Committee. And so in that role, was able to help a series of boards work through a variety of different policy initiatives trying to capture what IMATA's policy should be on different issues, and that can be a challenging thing. I remember when we talk about dry fisheries, my first interest in marine mammals, I remember back in 1972, I had this cherished copy of National Geographic magazine. And 1972 was such an interesting year because that was when the Marine Mammal Protection Act was passed in the United States. And that issue of National Geographic highlighted so many issues. Ones we saw already today about the tuna porpoise problem. The Navy's research was highlighted in that article, as well as the graphic images from the dry fisheries in Japan. And I can remember one of those early IMATA conferences I went to in '88, and even then, it was a topic of discussion, active discussion among the members, about how we were fortunate to be able to save a few animals from slaughter by bringing them into zoological institutions. But even back in the '80s, there was unease about the involvement of the zoological community in that drive. And that was when IMATA was 300 people, predominantly, certainly dominated by US with a smattering of Western Europe. And even then, colleagues were not, could see differences and different approaches, and it wasn't clear where everybody stood. So now magnify that to today, where we're almost to 2,000 members, folks, from dozens and dozens of countries all over the globe. How do we craft a policy that represents all of IMATA? And really what the board or series of boards have done is work when it comes to difficult issues like the dry fisheries to chart a course that first and foremost ensures that IMATA can do its best work by maintaining communication between trainers from all facilities all over the world on how training can enhance the care of the animals that we work with. And as long as we keep that as our focus and our guide, we can move forward from there. It doesn't mean that the questions are easy, but we keep that as our focus and then work from there.
Hi, my name is Flaherty, and I've been an animal trainer for 26 years. I've been a member of IMATA for as many. And I'm finally serving on the board of IMATA for the first time. I am your second vice president until the end of the week. Then I become your first. And I'm happy to be a part of the board. It's been eye-opening and energizing, and talking over all these issues the last couple of days and the last several months has been really, it's been a great release for me. I'm here tonight because of my involvement with, apparently specialty, with Blackfish, the movie. I was the corporate representative for SeaWorld Parks and Entertainment during the OSHA trial. And the death of a very good friend of mine spearheaded the movie itself. So I actually went up to my room this afternoon to prepare to be in front of people with a microphone talking about something that I've only been questioned about. You know, when they said, we want you to take 2 or 3 minutes and talk about the movie. I've never done that. And I tried to gather my thoughts, and now I asked for your glasses because they're blurry. I don't think I need my notes. The movie, it took everything I thought to be true about documentary filmmaking and threw it away. It shamefully misrepresents the work that we all do. And I can say shamefully, easily, in front of all of you, because they know. If I could sit here and say, well, you know, SeaWorld didn't participate in the film, and so maybe, you know, their out is, well, they just didn't know the real story. And that's absolutely not the case. In the movie, they make reference several times to the case that I was involved in. And the gentleman who was the expert for the other side of the case was sitting in the courtroom the entire time and says things in the movie that are exactly opposite of what happened in the courtroom. So they knew. They had hours and hours and hours of testimony, and repeated testimony from 7 and 8 and 9 different employees of mine, and chose to instead use opinions of jaded employees from the past, almost all of whom, every one of them really, who have not been actively involved with training animals in front of them for more than 15 years. So this is a documentary. If this is a documentary, that's scary. So what angers me most about the film is it dishonors my friend's life and tries to advance an agenda that she would so passionately have opposed. And what makes me the second most what's the word I'm looking for? The second most frustrating thing about it is it portrays all of us as victims who, you know, just don't, oh, poor us. We really do care about our animals. I mean, you walk away from that movie thinking, well, the trainers do care. But if it weren't for those corporate people making them believe what's not true and drilling this false knowledge into them and making them repeat it, and that's offensive. That's offensive to me. I'm an educated, articulate woman, and nobody puts words in my mouth. So, I'm here to talk about Blackfish, and my name is Flaherty.
Thanks, Kelly. I think all of us up here are passionate about what we do, but I think none of us are as close to the topics we need to talk about as Kelly. And I think it's very brave of her to be up here and be willing to answer your questions today, so I applaud her for that. My name is Ramirez. I am with the Shed Aquarium. I have been a trainer now for, oh my goodness, 36 years. I've worked with a wide variety of species of animals. I now work with the Shed Aquarium. In a couple of months, I will have been at the Shed Aquarium for 25 years. I oversee the animal care and training programs and veterinary programs for the aquarium. I'm up here primarily because of my longtime involvement with IMATA. I first served on the board in 1987, and I have been a board member or a committee chair consecutively since that time. I have chaired the education committee, I've been the historian, I have chaired the accreditation committee, currently chair of the central office committee, and also I think I'm up here for this variety of topics because I am one of several people who have been asked by the board to serve as a spokesperson for IMATA on controversial or media-related issues. And so consequently, I'm here because I am one of several individuals who've been asked to be the voice of you, the members, and I want to make sure I represent you well. And I want to be here to answer the questions you might have about how we address some of these issues that we're talking about today.
Thanks, Ken. My name is Billy Hurley. I work at the Georgia Aquarium. Ken's 140 years old, if you probably not deduce that from all the positions he's held. Everybody knows Ken. And I have tremendous admiration and respect for everybody, frankly, up here on this panel. I've had the good fortune of being involved with IMATA since the Bahamas conference, which, much like your experience, Mark, made me a lifer at the moment that they gave me the rum punch. I thought that was a good move. Nonetheless, I've been very, very fortunate, very blessed in my career. I started at a facility in Fort Walton Beach that was opened in 1955, which is now named the Gulf Area Marine Adventure Park, followed by a really wonderful job working at the University of California, Santa Cruz, along Marine Lab, which was probably the coolest job anybody could have. That was followed by one of the most fantastic jobs, at least beautiful places to live, working for a company you might have heard of called Dolphin Quest. And that was followed by going down to Marineland in Florida to do some resurrecting of the world's oldest oceanarium. I've been fortunate to be at the Georgia Aquarium now 5 years. I'm currently the president of the Alliance of Marine Mammal Parks and Aquariums. And regarding IMATA, I currently hold the post as your accreditation chair and a presidential advisor. I too have shared the position of vice president, president, and others. Today I'm here, this evening I'm here to probably more or less talk briefly about the beluga whale importation project that the Georgia Aquarium began actually back in 2007. But I have a presentation tomorrow that I want to share with all of you at 1 o'clock, so I hope that you'll take the opportunity to be there where I'll have the opportunity to talk in greater detail. That said, I'm not sure how many of you are aware of the Georgia Aquarium's intent to import 18 beluga whales from the sovereign country of Russia. It's something that has been worked on, as I said, since 2007 with some extensive research in the field, population studies, followed by a tremendous amount of work with organizations like the IUCN to demonstrate no detriment to that population if the Russians continue to remove animals or collect animals from there. Again, I'll talk more about that tomorrow, but what surprises me, and maybe surprises me a little bit about even some of the members of IMATA and some of the members that are faithfully working at many of the organizations that you work for as well, that there's still many, many questions, and I think that's because the activists, while a vocal minority, do a tremendous job of beating the streets. They do a tremendous job of using the internet to their advantage, and much as Kelly and others have spoken about, it doesn't really matter if they're telling the truth, it just matters if they can repeat it over and over. And if they do that, then my goodness, people with short attention spans and people in America that want to switch to the next channel, or, no, I'll say America. People in America that think that way, they just don't seem to be interested in the truth of the facts. And I think that in the 20 plus years that I've had the opportunity and absolute blessing to work with marine mammals, I will tell you that it is surprising that it took us this long to decide that remaining quiet and just letting our good chores and our good work and our good ethics show that we now have to talk about it. We have to thump our chest about it a little bit, because if you don't manage your PR, they're going to manage it for you. So that's something we're here to talk about tonight. And with that said, Eric, I'll pass it back to you.
Okay, thank you, Billy. And we know that we're going to have some time with Billy tomorrow. I believe it's at 11:30 tomorrow. Is it 1? Well, we're going to make sure Billy arrives at the right time, so we'll have to double check our proceedings. So we may see some questions directed at Billy that may be deferred if he knows he's going to cover that tomorrow. I did want to ask Michael a question, and in the movie Blackfish, you hear the perspectives from past SeaWorld trainers, and really, Michael, you represent a past SeaWorld trainer, and I know that you've seen the movie Can you share your thoughts on the movie?
Well, I don't want to put anyone on the spot. How many in this group have seen the film? That's actually more than I thought. What movie did we pay for? A Man of Steel, and we snuck into Blackfish so that way they didn't get our money. Yeah. And fortunately, in Midtown Atlanta, the theater that I saw the film is one of those that serves alcohol, so it worked out great. I got through it that way. I think for me, Eric, there were two takeaways from that movie that struck me as something that the general public would get. The takeaways from that film, if you're not in our profession, is that if you go to an aquarium or zoo or marine park, you should feel guilty about taking your family there. And the other thing that was at least a takeaway for me was that the trainers aren't the bad guys. These folks who are the former employees, with the exception of one, I didn't work with them because they didn't cross timelines with me. They worked at SeaWorld long before I got there, and I started in the late 1990s. What I can say, and sit here and look you all in the eye and say, is that I never once saw any sort of mistreatment, nor participated in anything like they claim in that film during the 10 plus years that I worked in that Florida park, including my time at Shamrock Stadium. In the film, the trainers, the former trainers say, the trainers aren't the bad guys. Even the ones, I'm beating them down. Even the ones that are still there, those trainers working there love those animals. They're doing the best they can. They care for them. And that's why we stayed so long, because we cared for them too, until we had this moment where we thought, this is wrong. And to the general public, I think those trainers came off as credible because they were the ones there. They did it. They showed video of those 5 main folks featured in the film participating in shows and interacting with those whales. So when you're watching this film, you're like, yeah, they did it. There's a video of them, playing with that whale. And it paints the corporate culture of what we do as the bad guys, not the trainers. And I think that in a way that gives us a little bit of an advantage as we craft our message and we push back and we take back some ground and we just tell our story. And we'll talk a little bit more about that as we go on, but I think as we move forward, we need to be out there proactively telling our story. And when you get the opportunity to be in front of guests and you're talking to visitors at your work, you need to remember that this goes for all of us, is that Billy doesn't work at Georgia Aquarium. Ken doesn't work at Shed Aquarium. Kelly doesn't work for SeaWorld. Mark doesn't work for the Navy. We all work for animals. We work for the animals in our charge. And if you show that to the people that come to visit, you're going to be sharing your story and sharing the message that we need to every day. So I don't know if that was more of an answer than you were looking for, but I think that kind of gives you a 30,000-foot look down on what I think of the film.
Thank you. No, that's great, and really appreciate your perspective. I know that we're going to be limited on time, and I'd like to open it up. So if you are interested in asking a question, please proceed and just stand behind the microphone, and then we know that someone is ready to ask a question. And we have that right now, so we have the mic.
Here we go.
You didn't think it was going to take too long to hit me up, did you? Especially about this. I want to point something out. SeaWorld, it wasn't allowed to say and name names or defend themselves the way they probably should have been able to defend themselves from Blackfish. But I'll take it a step further. These trainers that Michael was talking about, did work for me for many years, the trainers in the movie. One of them, Jeff, I'll let you see the movie and you'll know who Jeff is, got fired from SeaWorld by Chuck and I. And he got fired because he was abusing his privilege to work the killer whales. He was breaking all the safety violations, the exact thing he accuses SeaWorld of. He broke the safety violations 3 times. The last time I watched him do a show, he didn't know I was in the audience, and he was sticking his head in the killer whale's mouth to impress some girls out in the front of the stadium. And he got fired for that. Another gentleman by the name of John Jett, that's in the movie. John Jett got moved from the killer whale stadium because he couldn't swim that well because he spent too much time lifting weights and he about crushed his head when he would lift his arms. And he wasn't a good swimmer, so the whales hated him because of that. And we moved him to sea lion and otter. We didn't fire him. We moved him to sea lion otter for that reason, because he was not good with the killer whales, and we were worried about his safety in working with them. The other gentleman, Dean Gomersall, who was in the film, got fired from SeaWorld for kicking the otters that he worked with at Sea Lion and Otter. And now he sits in this film and tells everybody how worried he is about these killer whales.
Never spent a day at Shamu Stadium.
What's that?
He never spent a day at Shamu Stadium.
Never a day at Shamu Stadium. He had no idea what was going on. He was just friends with the other ones. And then there's the gentleman, John Hargrove. I hired John Hargrove in SeaWorld, Texas. He did okay for a little while, for about a year. He then decided he wanted to move to San Diego because he wanted to be a movie star. So he started dating some movie stars in Los Angeles, and he got a job at SeaWorld, SeaWorld San Diego. He's even hired a film crew to come in and film him while he was doing water work with killer whales. If you Google his name, you can see his little promotional film of himself working killer whales on the internet. So these are the people that are tearing down SeaWorld and tearing down our profession. I'm not going to speak much longer. I'll let you guys, I'm not on the panel, sorry, I've taken so much time. But the other thing I did want to say is I'm really, really impressed with Eric's presentation this morning. It's about time. This is what we have to do. IMATA needs to stand up. I've always been proud of IMATA because they have always been willing to say something when other organizations that I belong to are not willing. And I'm not going to name those organizations, but one of them's having a meeting at the exact same time we're having. It's great. It is great not to work for anybody anymore except for myself. So, it's about time that we do this. And I'm telling you right now, I am really worried about our profession here at SeaWorld, because I think it's going away. I think, and I'm out there every day, and I watch the news a lot. I'm very political. And I watch what's going on, and I can see how we are losing this battle. The press gives them all the airtime. They don't want to hear the truth. When I was defending SeaWorld before Blackfish, when Don, who was a very good friend of mine, when Don got killed, I went on the news. And the reason I did was the first week, I stayed out of it. I said, I'm not going to get involved. And then I saw nobody coming to the defense of SeaWorld or anything about that. So I called a news reporter and said, I have a few things to say. And once I did one interview, then they started calling me for a bunch of interviews. So I went on Larry King Live 3 times. I was on CNN. I was on many different shows defending SeaWorld about this issue. The one thing that bothered me, though, and this was back then, and I know it's going to change, and I really commend the board and everybody for doing this, but it's about time. The only other person that I saw on the news saying anything to defend SeaWorld was Billy Hurley and Mark where's Mark? You're here, right? Mark. Not the line. Why can't I think of his name? Mark Simmons were the only ones that got up and said something. And I was like, where in the hell is the rest of the world right now? I was pissed at the Marine Mammal Alliance. Where were they? I never heard them say anything. So we have to stand up. When you have the opportunity, do so. And you can call the media. I've done it. I just got called last week by CNN and Anderson Cooper. They wanted me to come on and debate David Kirby. And I said, I'm there. What day? And what's it about? And then once I talked to him for a while, I talked him out of even putting it on the air. I basically said, oh, I'd love to debate David Kirby. I would love to, because he's an idiot. I said, he wrote a book. What business did he have of writing a book? He has absolutely no experience with animals, no experience with kill whales. I talked to this lady for a while. She called me back 2 days later and said, we've canceled the whole idea. We're not going to do it. So we were able to avoid any bad publicity about it. Again, I don't work for SeaWorld anymore.
Can you give them a call and have them cancel the air on CNN?
Well, I've already told them I'm available for after the showing of Blackfish, because I would love to go on and debate them about this. But again, the last thing I want to say, and then I promise I'll sit down. The last thing I want to say is, be willing to get on TV. Be willing to talk to the press. Be willing to get the story out there. If you know any of these trainers I just mentioned, that I didn't mention, that are in this film, and you know them, then go out and tell the story you just heard just now. That is the truth. 2 of them were fired. The other 2 were just glory hounds and wanted to look good in front of the camera. And they did not care about the animals. That's why they didn't work there very long. They weren't there that long. They're trying to get their 15 minutes of fame off of our backs. And I'm really worried about that too, because I don't think this is going away. This pressure is going to continue to build, and I can pretty much see that we may in 50 years might not have any oceanariums left in the United States. We might be out of business. And we've seen it in a lot of things. And that's how they work it. They move slowly, but they are steady. And they will not give up this fight. The last thing I want to say is be truthful. Be truthful when you're on TV. Tell the truth. Don't get caught in a lie. And tell them you want to do live interviews. Live interviews they can't edit. And then they can't make you look stupid, like they've done with me on Blackfish.
Thank you, Thad. Really appreciate your comments. One thing that Thad did say was you can call the media. Well, if you do that, you'll get in trouble with your PR department. So, but points are well taken. And one thing I wanted to mention, and we've been talking about this as a board, that IMATA is very unique in that we're an organization of individual members. So we're not an organization of facilities. And what made, in Blackfish, when the trainers speak, is powerful. And that's a message for us. When people want to hear from us, they want to hear from the people that are working directly with the animals. And you can have that senior VP standing in front of an aquarium talking. It's not the same. It's not the same. It's when we're talking to the media that people listen. So what we're talking about as an organization is we're talking about what should our message points be. And we need to get organized and we need to get united. So there needs to be some coordination with that. And your board is working on that very, very seriously. I think we have a question over here.
Hi. My name's Kelly Raylan. I'm from Six Flags Discovery Kingdom. We're the one with the snotty walruses. And I just wanted to really get up here and say thanks, because we haven't had a voice for a really long time. And I was told about a year ago by somebody that the biggest fight that we have the biggest problem that we have with the activists is that the activists are so passionate about their beliefs that they're willing to do extraordinary things to get their message across. They're willing to live in poverty, and they're willing to give everything. I mean, we have a couple of ladies who live down the street from us who have given all their money, all their time, all their lives dedicated against what we do. And I looked at that person and I said, you're so wrong, because you've got it right here in this room. We're the counterweight. You have people who've worked for years for no pay. I mean, I interned for years. I know everybody else here did. We work for, let's face it, not a lot of money. But we're happy to do it because we're the counterweight. We're those people that are equally as passionate, and we don't live in great means either. So harness us. And I'm so happy to see that we're finally being harnessed, because we're intelligent, passionate, educated people. And we have everything in the world to say about what we do. And there's no reason why we shouldn't be out there saying it, because the more silent we stay, the louder they get. And our only option now is to speak out. So thank you for that. And then the only other thing I wanted to say too is that at Discovery Kingdom, we're blessed to have a really large family. We have our marine mammal family and we have our land animal family. And together we make up animal care. And we are united behind every one of the trainers that we have at our park. And it's coming everywhere, because once they get done with the whales and the dolphins, they're coming for the sea lions. Pretty soon they're going to care about the otters. They don't right now, but pretty soon they will. And we need to be united as animal care professionals. Not just marine mammal trainers, not just the marine mammal community. So I'm so happy to see how we're bringing in our land animal compatriots as well. We're all passionate people, and let's use our voice, because it's time.
Kelly, but before you go, watch this. Do you want to?
You're making my cheeks hurt, okay? Because I was up here and I was smiling so hard. See, I win. I am a woman.
See, just talk louder and we're gonna win, right?
No, you're making my cheeks hurt. And this is, you're up there and you're passionate and you're just telling your story. And I'm smiling so hard that my cheeks are hurting. And can you put that picture up, the one that I like so much? There's a picture, and this was done by an education employee. A lot of you have probably seen it. An education employee at SeaWorld of Texas. And it went a little viral among our community, I think. But it's so real. Those are people, these are the people. They will stand with an animal making popcorn money an hour for 24 hours, holding it up, so that species might have a chance, And these people down here on the red carpet, what that said is true, that I'm not gonna say. I know all of them, and when I was working with them at least, they were not anything like the people in the top shot. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Michael.
How do you follow that?
Okay. Any other panelists? You guys are good. Okay, we're going to go right over here. Please introduce yourself when you...
My name is Dr. Sean Noren. I'm from University of California, Santa Cruz. Some of you might have seen my talk this morning. And so I straddle both sides of the story, right? I'm working on trying to conserve wild animals, but I definitely need you guys, like I said before, to help me get to that information. And I travel a lot, and I'm always working on the airplane with my computer open, and I always have my nosy people next to me ask me what I do, and I'm happy to share because I want to spread the word. And so I hear your passion, I know you, because we work together. I hear the passion, but I don't think that's enough to bring other people that are not in your organization. I keep hearing you need to reinvent your story, you need to tell your story. You guys are enthusiastic and you take good care of your animals, and I see that. You need to reinvent some positive press for your group and not be on the defensive. I tried to convey that today. The work I've done with Dolphin Quest got a lot of positive press, tons of positive press. The New York Times, The Economist, CNN, NBC. I'm just saying, defend yourself, speak up, at these current issues, which I'm not familiar. I didn't see the movie. I just saw the code the other day, and I'm still dealing with that. So you guys are passionate, but you have to speak to the public, and I'm constantly telling people, Even my husband, Sean, you were trying to conserve wild animals. How can you rectify that you're working in aquaria? I said, because these animals are well taken care of. I go to facilities where they're well taken care of, and I need these animals to help save the wild animals. So a platform of IMATA as well as the Alliance is research, and I just challenge you guys to look at what you call research. You need to go beyond the veterinary research, beyond the training research. Screen people coming into your facilities. You don't want some wacky person who says they're a researcher. Like, develop some kind of platform to bring people in that can do good science and get positive press for you guys and explain the importance of having these amazing animals under human care. They are ambassadors for the general public, but you need to also show what else they can do for their wild counterparts.
Okay, thank you. Let's go to this question over here.
Hi, my name is Gabby Munoz. I'm from the Kansas City Zoo. I've been in contact with you, Kelly, about the preview panel at the AZA conference the same week as this one, so I couldn't be in two places at one time. But I have a question for you, Kelly. I guess one thing that was concerning me when I watched the movie Blackfish was it kind of seemed like the corporate SeaWorld kept the trainers in the dark in regards to incidents that happened, whether it was injuries or deaths, and what actually happened, what should have maybe been improved, incident reports, how do you convey what happened to your trainers so that it doesn't happen again. And that being said, since there have been, in my opinion, quite a few deaths of trainers from killer whales, in my mind, I likened it to working elephants. I know a lot of programs have moved their programs from free contact to protected contact. In fact, AZA is kind of mandating by 2015 all programs need to be protected contact with elephants. And I wanted to get each panel member's opinion on working killer whales protected contact versus free contact, and how you guys feel about that.
Okay, I'll take the first part of that first, because I think it's exactly what most of the general public thinks. The trainers were portrayed as having been left out of some kind of loop. And this is one of those points about Blackfish that is really frustrating. They knew full well, because they went through the court documents line by line, as evidenced by the fact that they took 2 lines completely out of context, what I said in the courtroom. So they read over and over again 9 total witnesses, if you include myself and Chuck Tompkins, saying that you don't set foot into Shamu Stadium without receiving something called the Telecom Talk. And in that Telecom Talk was his entire history, including the deaths of a woman at Sealand of the Pacific and a gentleman in the park. It was outlined, it was step by step, and there were rules and standard operating procedures dedicated specifically to telecom. Now, does one of the characters in the movie, and I'll call him a character in the movie, say he wasn't told, he wasn't spoken to about this by management?
John Jett.
It was not at Shamu Stadium when the animal arrived at Shamu Stadium, and another gentleman who says that was at Whale and Dolphin Stadium. And the woman who claims to have heard a manager telling an employee to step away and move off of that gate. And she was so surprised that Thad would be saying this to such a seasoned employee. I think it just outlines further how very clear it was made to all of us at the facility when Telecom arrived that he would be worked differently. He was only worked by Thad and Chuck for the first several days. There was written documentation also submitted in the courtroom from our corporate zoological, what was his title at the time? Brad Andrews, in memo form to all animal trainers about Telecom's history. It's a lie. That part of the movie is a lie. We knew, and we have worked Telecom differently than we work any of our other whales since he got here. Now, since the accident, we have worked Telecom much differently. And we work him from a different distance. The distance that we considered safe prior to the accident is defined differently now. We have a whole set of protocols. He responded very well to new conditioning. But I'm going to sit up here as an animal trainer and say that Tilikum is Tilikum, and you all work with different animals. They all have different histories. And I do not believe that all killer whales should be interacted with exactly as Tilikum is interacted with. Do I think we're taking the right steps with Tilikum? Absolutely. He has a history. And he now has a history that involves bringing someone into his environment, something that he had never shown us in more than 20 years. So we're working Tilikum differently now. I am not an advocate of working all killer whales like we work Tilikum. It's not the safest way to work all killer whales, and it's not the best way to care for them. And what matters most, if we're going to have them in our care, is that we take the best way. We take care of them the best. We put our safety first, and then the care of them is a very, very close second. So that's my opinion on it. However, I'm very close to that topic, and I'd love to hear from Billy.
Thanks, Kelly. As always, I applaud your passion for Tilikum and for the animals in your care. I had the opportunity to be at AZA, by the way. I just flew in from Kansas City about 35 minutes ago. Woohoo! And I serve on the WCMC, which is their wildlife conservation management group. And for 2 days, we talked about all sorts of things, including protective contact with elephants and other scenarios. And I echo Kelly's points. You know, how do you folks know who Michael Vick is? The quarterback, the NFL guy that had all the dog fighting and stuff. If you ask the people who inherited those dogs, and I'm by no means comparing Tilikum to those dogs, but what I'm trying to tell you here is that, do you honestly believe that on day one, hugging one of those animals was a good idea? Probably not. Probably not your best move. But if you then compare to, say, come over to my house and see the 2 black labs who might lick you to death, then come on over. But you need to understand not only the species you're working with, but certainly the individual history for that animal. I had the opportunity to go down to SeaWorld and to participate in some of the reviews after Dawn's loss. And I'll be honest, it broke my heart to watch the hearts broken of not only the trainers that work there at Shipman Stadium, but frankly the animals who were, in my opinion, so hungry for the very attention that they had been given, in many of their cases, their whole lives. And so, while I think it prudent to recognize Tilikum's history, I think by no means, as Kelly said, that you could paint other animals with that brush. I appreciate safety. Safety is something we all need to be concerned about. But I can slip falling down these stairs here. I can. Oh, I did that back in April and broke some ribs. That's right, I did do that. My wife pushed me down the stairs. She told me she loved me when we were done. I don't know. But at any rate, the point here is that killer whales are magnificent animals. But you know, a honeybee will sting you too if you decide to put that honeybee in a position that it feels it needs to do something. And while Tilikum is a very interesting case study, I don't think that it's fair across taxa, or in the case of even just killer whales, to assume that the concept of someone like OSHA, who has absolutely no concept or experience or any sort of expertise to wade into this conversation, has driven SeaWorld into a position, both litigiously and otherwise, to take something away from animals who crave that love and that attention that they receive and have received, and hopefully someday will receive again.
All right, I'll say something. When it comes to the question of protected contact, it is a very complicated subject, and the entire reason it is controversial within the elephant community isn't even a part of the marine mammal community. In the elephant community, there are certain groups of trainers that still use quite a few aversives to train, and consequently going to protected contact made the perceived need of those aversives less necessary in the marine mammal community, and certainly in the folks that I know that work with killer whales. They've always approached working with them from a positive reinforcement perspective, and so the protected contact issues are very different ones. And I think the decision to work in protected contact is really a management decision. It's not a It's not something that should be legislated, because the reality is there is nobody who understands better how to care for our animals than those of us who do it every day. And because of that, we each make different decisions. We recently received some animals from the Bonneville Dam. They were rescued animals, 1,100-pound California sea lions. We chose to work them in protected contact when they first came in. And once we developed a relationship, now our senior trainers work in free contact, but our younger trainers still work in protected contact. Those are intelligent decisions that we made based on the individual animals, based on their temperament, based on the experience level of our staff. The decision to go to protected contact is an important one. Safety should always be our top priority, but it should not be a decision that is legislated or that is dictated by people who don't understand animal care. It's an important decision. Since you reinforced me, I'll just stop.
Okay, thanks, Ken. Let's go to the far side of the room.
Hi, I'm Nick Kafkas. I work with SEIC down in San Diego. And really what I want to know is, I'm 24 years old. I've just entered the business. I'm the third generation. How can I approach this by telling people that Blackfish is just a bunch of bullshit? I work with the Navy, sorry. That's okay. How can I not pussyfoot around the idea and just tell them, hey, I'm learning to be a great trainer, and I want to show them that I am doing our best, we all are doing our best to take this community and take it higher and get them being pulled down by people. And I'm in a position where I need to sign like 70 papers just to get a paint pen on base. So how can I say something without being, stopped by red tape or anything of that sort? Mark, this is more for you, I guess.
That's fair enough. And yeah, you are not yet an official spokesperson for the United States Navy. That said, though, you interact with family, friends, at home, here, right? And so by having thoughtful discussion with them, and whenever you can, find out the facts. The previous questioner talked about how the frequency of aggressive incidents with the killer whales. And I think had shared with us that she's come under the impression that they were frequent or too frequent. And I don't know that the facts bear that out. The safety record, especially given the animal's size, is extraordinary. That's part of the issue. Is you all were so good at it for so long that even the first mistake it seems counter to everything. How could this happen? There was that incongruence between what people's expectations were. So the facts are key, and when we can get them. And this is a great place to get the facts. Talk to folks who know and get that information. And then carry that forward to those folks that you are now interacting with, family, friends, and your colleagues here.
Could I also maybe answer that question for you? Because I am someone who has never worked for SeaWorld, never worked for them. I owe them nothing except the gratitude for the things they brought to this community, the things they've done for this organization. But even if that weren't true, even if they had done nothing for this organization, which they have, the reality is, by being a member of this organization, I have met many of them, and I know them to be compassionate, caring, animal care professionals just like everybody else. And because of that, what I can say is, when someone asks me, I said, well, I didn't work for SeaWorld, so I can't answer that. But what I can tell you is that I know many of these trainers. I know them. I know the people that work with these animals, and they care about those animals deeply like I care about the animals where I work. And where I work, we take excellent care of our animals, and I believe they do the same thing. And I think that's as far as we can take it. We can speak for our profession. We can passionately speak about our friends and our colleagues who we trust, who we've gotten to know. Because you're new in the field, maybe you haven't got to know a lot of us really well yet, but you will. This week, you're going to meet many of us, and you'll find that everyone in this room shares the same passion that I assume you have. And our colleagues at SeaWorld, they're just like us. Every one of us got into this field because we care deeply about these animals. And we would never, I always tell people if 1% of the allegations leveled at us by the activists were true, I'd go out and protest right alongside of them because I don't want to see the animals mistreated any more than anybody else does. And that's just not what this profession is about. So I think you can defend our profession, I think you can defend our colleagues without having to get into the specifics of that particular situation, which we honestly don't know much about because we weren't there. And that's my way of looking at that.
Thank you, Ken.
Revved up Ken Ramirez.
Go ahead.
Revved up Ken Ramirez. You don't see it.
It's, we call it, Kelly, we call it fired up. Ken's fired up. All right. Okay, let's go to over here.
Hi, my name is Cecilia Marre. I'm from Chile. I'm not in this industry. I'm an assistant stock trainer. A couple of years ago, I tried to have the guys from Ocean Embassy that was part of that company at the time and bring them to Chile to a degree that we were giving at the university. And we couldn't because of the activism in Chile. After that, I didn't care. The university took their opinion. The dean says no. They didn't want to go and expose themselves to anything. So after that, I anyway bring that to Chile to give some training courses in my organization because I don't care if they say no, I will do it anyway. I don't care anybody's opinion. And a couple of years after that, I was at the university again, and I saw that they were giving the movie The Cove for the students for free, veterinary students and different other careers. And I immediately called the dean and I said, well, if you're showing this movie for free, can I show you a video that I found in YouTube? And when I have to have a lot of information to have this meeting with the activists, I found a video that, I don't know if SeaWorld did it or whatever, but it says, well, the fact that the cove says here is not true and this is the truth, well, and I asked permission to give that movie the same. I didn't get it. So this is not about the United States. This is about the whole world. We don't have marine parks in Chile. Cetaceans in captivity are forbidden by law. But this is a problem that we're facing everywhere. So please, if you, it's not enough to go to the media. I totally agree with that, but it's not enough because we don't have your news. And we need some material that has to come from here, from the IMATA community, to show people, to show the students, because they're lying, and the students are believing these lies. So please give us some material to show, and to show in other countries, in other languages, so everybody can see the other side, the real and the true side of this story.
Thank you very much for those comments. Michael, can you share some thoughts on some of the strategies that we've been talking about?
One of the things that we're looking at doing is we've identified a couple of goals that we have, and I have not committed them to memory. But what I'll do here is I'm going to try to look them up on email, and if you want to get with me after this, we can chat and we can talk about that. But we have some goals about what we'd like to do in terms of a public relations strategy, not just externally, but internally as well. We want to make sure that the membership is afforded the information that you need to not just interact with the colleagues back at your place of employment, but and the guests that you meet and interact with, or the managers that are not in the zoological field that you may come into contact with. So we're looking at an internal communication and an external communication so that we are making sure that that information gets into your hands. And it's not just the board and the public relations committee who is doing this, a bunch of animal trainers coming together trying to craft messages. We've engaged with a public relations firm who are helping us take the messages that we have and streamline them so that we're being consistent throughout and we're making the points that we want to make to tell our side of the story, to tell the truth and make sure that that gets out there. So the quick answer to your question is, this is happening, we're working on this, and within the next 6 months, you will see the effects of that change. If you do not know, if you don't want to go and spend the money on Blackfish, it will be on your TV, whether you like it or not, on October 24th. CNN Films, who purchased the film, will be showing, they're showing it on CNN in just over a month. So it will be out there for more than just somebody who decided on a Friday night they wanted to take their date to see that. It will be there, and it is coming. I think to wrap up here, the Mandy Rodriguez said something one time, I think it was in Boston. He said, is Mandy here? He said something to the effect of, we are the animal rights activists. We are the ones doing the things that are advocating the welfare of these animals and inspiring the next generation of conservationists. And when we take these messages and we share them, that's what's going to help make the change. So definitely get with me after this and I'll show you the goals and those tactics.
And if I could follow up and say one other thing, you mentioned at the end of that you'd like to see those materials in other languages. One of the things that IMATA has been embracing in the last several years, and it really started under the leadership of Shelley Wood, our past president, was really looking at the global reach of this organization. And right now our Member Services Committee, who is headed up by Shelley and by Suna Edberg, are very involved in looking at translating so many of our materials. We've started with really focusing on Spanish and Chinese, but we plan to go into Japanese, into European languages, and we really are embracing the need to make materials available to everybody in more than just English. And so that is a very big push for our organization right now.
And one thing I'd like to add is that the PR strategy, the strategies that Michael was referencing is really encompassing. It's not just Blackfish. There's many issues out there, and we're talking about how to get the correct information out there. We're working very hard on that. We do consider October 24th to be a significant event. That movie will be in everybody's homes. And that's the wrong information. We have the correct information. Greg, go ahead.
Hi, Gray Stafford, and I promise not to talk as long as that. There have been a couple of themes that have popped out to me this evening, and one of the most important, I think, is the level of misinformation, even amongst our own community in this very room, and certainly across the terrestrial zoo community as well. And I work with both of those communities quite a bit. And just to give you perspective, and I think that's something that's been lost through this whole story with the tragic loss of Dawn, is a loss of perspective, a loss of balance. Did you know, for example, between 20 and 30 people are killed by their own dogs in this very country every single year? Some 200 people worldwide are killed by horses every single year. Now, you don't see this same kind of outrage because, why? Because it's not splashy and it's not spectacular. So I think those are the kinds of things that we need to remind ourselves of, but also our colleagues along the terrestrial side of things. And if there's one thing that I would caution you as you go about and educate your colleagues, your family members, and so forth, is don't count on someone else to carry that load for you or for this organization or for your specialty, whether it's marine mammals or terrestrials. Because there are a lot of people with the same misgivings, and they work in zoos and aquariums and marine mammal parks. So we have a big task ahead of us.
Thanks, Greg. Thanks. Absolutely. Fantastic. You know, I don't get to watch a lot of television, but I understand the last several years there have been these things where you watch at night and they say they're real life, or what are those things called? You guys watch TV? What are they called? Reality shows. Are you kidding? They could not be further from reality. The whole thing's staged. I mean, the whole show, it's ridiculous. And so what irritates me is the hijacking of that term that we aren't the welfare givers, or we're not the people who understand. And so I got to tell you, and getting back to our Navy sailor, with the great PR question over there, you know, these are not documentaries, these are shockumentaries. And it's just a style. If it bleeds, it leads. If you want to go out there and get people to be excited about you as a filmmaker, then just make a bunch of crap up. And that's really what it comes down to. The other day I was in someone's home and I was looking at their dog, and their dog was laying down and looked tired because they'd been playing out in the yard for a whole hour. But if I'd just taken that snapshot, and if I'd put Sarah McLachlan in the background, and if I had someone to say, this poor dog is tortured and tormented, you'd have bought every line of that for 30 seconds on your TV at night. And so there's not as much of a solution that IMATA can take a role in it, but I want you to pay attention to the absolute idiocy of what is going on in multimedia today, and harness every second that you can to change that image. You know, Gray, speaking of someone who does this often, is in Phoenix, and he's on television all the time, carrying animals to news stations or having people come out and talk to him. And you know, that's where the real deal is. And I will tell you, in case you don't keep up with these statistics, there are polls, and Harris Interactive polls and other things like that, that demonstrate well over 90% of the people, at least in this country, support exactly what you do. Think what you do is fantastic because they recognize you give them good care, you're educating people about these animals, and you're learning something from these animals. And telling that story, as we do within our parks, is great, but when you go out and you see a shockumentary, do keep in mind, ladies and gentlemen, that reality TV is so far from being reality. It's not, and so that's just TV. And so when you have a chance to talk to your family and friends, start at that 30,000-foot view before you get into the weeds about the truth about what we do. I mean, do stick to the fact that really you're going to believe what you saw on a movie screen. You're really going to, I mean, that's the whole point of movies, so that you can get away from reality to go watch a movie. That's what those were. It's what, they've taken over that and made that into something else. So again, shockumentary, not documentary when you talk about Blackfish, period.
I do want to dovetail really quickly, because one of the questions I got a lot when I was being interviewed about Blackfish, why didn't SeaWorld participate? It just feels like if you would have participated. Now they can say, we tried and SeaWorld didn't participate. And I wish Mark Simmons, and I remember his name, I wish he was in the room tonight, because last night we chatted for a little while. And I said, you know, he got talked into it, and he's not with SeaWorld, and he thought, I can do this. And we shared stories. I did an interview with Tim Zimmerman for Outside Magazine in the days following Don's death. And he had me for an hour or more, and he had a tape running the entire time. And he took two sentences of what I said. 2 sentences. And they really weren't that bad. It wasn't, you know, I didn't goof up. But he had an hour of me talking about what we do at SeaWorld and what kind of whale Tilikum is, and how amazing he was. He had an hour, a very emotional conversation with me, and chose less than 15 seconds. Mark Simmons told me last night he spoke with Gabriella for 3 hours. And if you've seen the movie, and you've seen the 12 seconds or so that Mark Simmons is in the movie, then you understand this is not the truth.